Scar always seemed like a Disney villain that had a lot more depth than The Lion King led fans to believe, and it looks like that was true. Thanks to various shows and books that have come out about the world of The Lion King since the film's release, it's been revealed that Scar wasn't always the evil lion that the rest of his pride saw him as. In fact, his backstory was one that was truly heartbreaking, and even revealed the tragic secret of how he actually got the nickname Scar. Since Scar was introduced in 1994, there have been multiple movie and series sequels to The Lion King that helped add depth to Pride Rock and the animals that resided there, including Simba's evil Uncle Scar. One of the greatest mysteries behind the character has always been how he got the signature wound that led to his notorious nickname. And for a while, it seemed like the only acceptable answer came from a book that was published in 2007 named A Tale of Two Lions. In that book, it was revealed that Scar's parents originally named him Taka, which means waste or trash in Swahili. And if that wasn't sad enough, the book also explained that Taka was always second best to Mufasa, and eventually, he grew tired of it. Taka tried to trick his older brother Mufasa into causing an altercation with the water buffalo that were at the watering hole, but his plan ended up backfiring, and in the commotion, Taka actually got cut by one of the large buffalo's horns, giving him a cut over his eye, which would eventually form the scar that he became known for. While that version of Scar's backstory is sad enough, there was actually another one that came out more recently and goes much more into depth about what Scar went through in his life. And thanks to The Lion Guard, fans now have a better understanding of why Scar's life was so heartbreaking that it led him to become the villain in Simba's story. As you know, Scar didn't always go by that name, but it was only after his time in The Lion Guard that the nickname would actually stick. Before he became the Scar that Disney introduced us to, Mufasa's brother was actually a leader of the group that was in charge of protecting Pride Rock. It was revealed in an early episode of the Disney Channel series The Lion Guard that before he turned on the Pride, Scar was once the leader of the Lion Guard and was granted the Roar of the Elders. But in a later episode, we actually got to see a version of Scar that appeared as a flame spirit and sang a tune that filled the audience in on his entire backstory. The song was named When I Became Scar, and the title says it all. It was Scar's way of revealing every detail about how he went from being a humble prince and leader of the Lion Guard to becoming a fallen villain. You see, before he was ever called Scar, according to the Lion Guard, his parents named him Askari, which is the East African term for soldier. And that in itself says a lot about his upbringing. Because Askari was the second son, his parents likely didn't think of him as becoming a king, and thus he needed to protect their eldest son and heir. So instead of naming him Mufasa like his brother, which means king, they named him Soldier and set Askari up to become the leader of the Lion Guard so that he could protect the Pride and their true heir. Meaning that even from birth, Scar didn't have it easy and always spent his time living in Mufasa's shadow. According to the way Scar came off in the show, though, he didn't let that affect him, and the fact that he was granted the power of the Roar of the Elders, it's clear that he didn't have malice towards his family. If he did, it isn't likely that the Elders would have granted him such a powerful roar. That being said, his allegiance was tested and inevitably led Askari to get that noticeable scar that his nickname's derived from. In the song When I Became Scar, he explained that when he was the head of the Lion Guard, he often patrolled on his own, and one day he came across a strange lion that proposed something interesting. Now, Scar was aware of the power that he had, so he didn't mind hearing the lion out, and he wasn't worried about getting injured, though in hindsight, he should have been more careful. The song revealed the lion's proposition, which was for him and Askari to team up so that they could take over Pride Rock for themselves. The lion preached that he had the wisdom, and if that were combined with Askari's roar, there was nothing that the pair couldn't do. Scar admitted this intrigued him, though if it hadn't, there's a chance that he would have never been known as Scar, and his life might not have been so depressing. Now, Scar knew how powerful he was with the Roar of the Elders at his disposal, and in the end, that arrogance is what cost him everything, including his name. According to the song, the lion that had proposed teaming up with Askari led him astray and betrayed him. He claimed that the lion had a friend hidden away that Askari couldn't see, who turned out to be a venomous snake, and when Scar's guard was down, the scheming lion and his hidden friend pounced. The venomous snake lunged at Scar and bit him on his left eye, which was how he ended up getting his trademarked scar. But the story keeps going from there, and the truth about his nickname is heartbreaking. After the snake attacked him, the lion that tricked him tried to make an arrangement with Askari. He claimed that he had the antidote to cure the snake's venom, but in return, Askari would have to do the lion's bidding no matter what. But here's the thing, Askari had never agreed to help the lion in the first place. He was simply intrigued intrigued by his proposal and hearing him out. So when he was betrayed by someone who was clearly trying to con him, Scar sorta lost his temper. At this point in When I Became Scar, Mufasa's brother explained that he was enraged by the attack and unleashed the Roar of the Elders, which, in his words, destroyed them, which is Disney's way of saying killed them. Actually, this is another great example as to how or why it's believed that Scar wasn't inherently evil and that his heartbreaking backstory turned him into the monster that he's known as. According to the Lion Guard, the rules of the Roar of the Elders were simple. The only real thing you weren't allowed to do with it was to turn it on your own pride and kill a lion. But that's exactly what Ascari did, although it didn't result in him losing the roar. No, that actually came later and only adds another layer to his heartbreaking backstory, and by the roar's own rules, Scar hadn't used his power for evil. According to his song in the Lion Guard, after Ascari eliminated these two big threats, he returned to his brother to tell him what happened. But instead of feeling any sense of appreciation toward Ascari, Mufasa just dismissed the incident and even made a mockery of his injury by giving him a new nickname, Scar. And in passing over the great service that Ascari had done for the Pride, the younger brother no longer looked up to Mufasa and in the song admitted that he shouldn't be king. That's the moment when Ascari officially became Scar in his own mind, and from that point on, he would try to drive a wedge within the Pride. Sadly, this wasn't the end of Scar's anguish, and in his search for vengeance, he lost more than he ever thought possible. As Scar began to turn into the villain that Disney portrayed him as in the first Lion King movie, the power that made him so unique would eventually be stripped away from him. In the song, When I Became Scar, the lion touched upon how he lost the powerful roar that would have made him a problem for Mufasa, and it turns out that it happened when he turned on the rest of the guard. This event was actually mentioned a few times throughout the series, sometimes with more detail than others, but the gist of the story is that Scar attempted a coup against Mufasa, and in doing so, the Roar of the Elders on his own comrades, and unlike when he used it on the scheming lion and the venomous snake, this time the elders deemed the use as evil and he was stripped of the power, and from that point on he was cast away from the Pride and decided to live among the hyenas in the elephant boneyard that was shown in the Lion King. By that point in time, the name Ascari had died out, and due to his traumatic history, he was forever stuck with the name Scar. Now, another sign that, despite him being a vengeful lion, Scar was generally kind-hearted feline was how he treated the hyenas. While the rest of the lions and the animals in Pride Rock were afraid of and disgusted by the hyenas, Scar stood by them and saw how useful they could be for the Pride Lands. Now, your first thought might be to dismiss that statement based on how he treated them in The Lion King, especially toward the end of the movie. But it's important to note that while he lived with the hyenas, Scar always took care of them. Even before he began to sing Be Prepared, he fed his companions despite his outward aggression toward them when they failed to kill Simba. Honestly, the only time that he was truly mean or lashed out towards the hyenas was when Simba came back after years of Scar believing he was dead. The hyenas had actively lied to Scar and allowed him to feel comfortable on the throne, so it's no wonder that he was angry enough to throw them under the bus to Simba after he lost their fight. That's not to say that he was doing the right thing, it's just important to note that Scar's anger rarely came from a place of malice and typically was because he felt he'd been wronged or disrespected, which had happened countless times throughout his life. What do you think though? Does Scar's heartbreaking origin make up for the fact that he was possibly the worst uncle in Disney history? Make sure you let us know in the comments below.